Come inside my head, give me room to breathe. It's better unsaid when I can't speak, when I'm dead, when I'm dead, when I'm dead, when I'm dead. Show me what you want.
Okay, so I can't get out of here. I don't know how long it's been, but I have grown out my facial hair, so sorry for that. I figure I can wait until someone notices that I'm gone. If someone notices. In the meantime, I found a box of some of my old stuff in here, and I've been managing to stay distracted. Steven Universe has been keeping me busy, as it has for many years. I started watching the show toward the end of its third season, and after I finished it, I started watching it again. I've tried to push my love for this show on almost every friend and partner that I've shared considerable time with since. I've probably seen the show upwards of 10 to 20 times at this point. Whenever I'm not feeling well, Steven Universe has always made me feel better. Most of the conversation surrounding Steven Universe has been haunted by howevers and could have beens. You'll have a difficult time finding praise for the show online without the addressing of its proverbial elephant in the room. The overwhelming and often unfair negative feedback that the show received has all but dominated its remembrance in the years since it ended. I don't need to speculate to draw a connection between this legacy the show ended up with and its strong association with queer themes. I will not be addressing any of the negative criticism here. There are plenty of other writers whom you can turn to if that's what you're looking for. I'm tired of the trend of placing butt behind any praise that this show gets. Yeah, everything is flawed in one way or another. You can tear apart any work of art that someone might call perfect. So, allow me to commit to the praise, as I often do, in saying that,
Ooh, don't start it.
Look, I can explain.
if Steven Universe were to be summed up by its most prominently used verb, it would be love. As cheesy as it sounds, love is Steven's answer to almost every problem he encounters. And that doesn't make him weak. It makes him the strongest character in the show. He emotes in the extreme at every turn. His emotions are never seen by the show as an obstacle, but as the answer.
Wow, I knew it.
He loves his friends unquestionably and without judgment. He always assumes the best in others and sees their mistakes as an opportunity for growth. If Steven is the ambassador for humanity, he makes us look good, portraying our compassion and tendency toward change as our greatest assets. Through Steven's eyes, the skies are beautiful, voices are like music, and all of our enemies can be made allies. Steven Universe is a children's action-adventure cartoon led by a healer who wields a shield, a class that's normally relegated to support or secondary in other similar stories. The show frames Steven's more passive abilities as a benefit to his role as a leader. He's never quick to aggression, only ever fighting as a last resort or in self-defense. The initial instinct is always to try to communicate. Everyone loves Steven because he shows them love first, always making friends before assuming enemies. Steven is a hybrid child, half human, half alien. His mother, an intergalactic war criminal, died bringing Steven into the world and left her friends to watch over him. This leaves Steven with some pretty complex feelings about her. I can personally relate to some of this, as I'm sure that many single-parent children probably can. My mother wasn't around. She was alive, but I think that just made me more bitter about her not being there. She used to be there, and then one day she wasn't. To my younger self, she had chosen not to be with me, and it made me feel worthless. I mean, I had love around me as a child, but I always fixated on the possibility that I could lose that love. It made me incredibly codependent. To this day, I think I still latch on and don't let go. I change myself to please others. I kill parts of myself to avoid having to be alone. I see in Stephen much of myself as a child, and I want to be more like that version of myself. Sincere, thoughtful, in love with the world, and at peace with myself. I think Steven Universe brings out the best in me. In the episode Rose's Scabbard from the show's first season, Stephen finds one of his guardians, Pearl, after having an emotional breakdown, sitting alone. She continues to grieve the loss of her friend, Stephen's mom, Rose. She explains to Stephen that Rose was everything to her and she doesn't really know what to do without her. Stephen doesn't immediately know what to say. This isn't exactly a situation he can just fix. Pearl admits that she sometimes wonders if Rose can see her through Stephen's eyes. She asks him what Rose might think of her now.
Well, I think you're pretty great.
Stephen can't fix the past, but he can show her love and maybe help her heal from it in the future. Stephen can float in the air, he has super strength, and he can heal physical injuries, but his true power is his love for others. When the original series finale aired, I was living in a tiny studio apartment with no Wi-Fi, no real furniture, and a TV sitting on a cardboard box. I had a little balcony that was overlooking a wooden fence and a dumpster, where I used to strongly consider trying to quit smoking while I watched downloaded episodes of Steven Universe on my little cheap laptop. It had a broken headphone jack, so it was always crackling and falling out. Anyways, my partner at the time and I watched the series finale in that apartment, sitting on the futon where we normally slept, with the whole apartment bathed in candlelight. I distinctly remember the way that the candlelight would bounce off of the half-empty bottle of Crown that had made its home on my coffee table. I cried when the episode ended and quickly announced that Steven Universe was my favorite TV show. I wore that badge proudly, up until I watched Twin Peaks for the first time. From then on, for some reason, I told everybody that I had 2 favorite TV shows. I sometimes even borrowed the often insecure phrasing of, Steven Universe is my favorite TV show, but Twin Peaks is the best TV show, as if to imply that Twin Peaks is a more correct, objective answer and that Steven Universe is some kind of a guilty pleasure. I don't really like that implication. How does one say that they like 2 things the same, but in a different way? Do we not have a shorthand for that?
Hello! This is like some kind of miracle, a phenomenon.
Not every show can be Twin Peaks. It has a legacy that transcends its medium. I mean, most of modern prestige TV can be traced back to Twin Peaks in 1990. Without it, we wouldn't have Lost, The X-Files, True Detective, The Sopranos, Breaking Bad. I will not be citing any sources. I have none. I say this with complete sincerity. Twin Peaks is the TV show. It's the blueprint for the golden age of television. An FBI agent, Dale Cooper,
Agent Dale Cooper!
arrives in the quiet Washington town of Twin Peaks to investigate the murder of local homecoming queen Laura Palmer. The whole community is being consumed by darkness, and our heroes will have to come face to face with the strange, surreal, and supernatural. Do you remember when I said I would talk more about David Lynch? Twin Peaks was created by David Lynch and Mark Frost. Mark Frost's contribution to the show is often underappreciated, in my opinion, but that's only because David Lynch is a literal icon. His impact on much of the art that I consume cannot be overstated. I mean, the claim that a work is simply inspired by Lynch is usually enough to get me to give it a look. His work has this surreal atmosphere to it that make the characters almost feel tangible in contrast, like a dream or a vision. In the first episode of the show's second season, the character Bobby Briggs is sitting in a diner booth. Bobby has, up to this point, been a frustrating character. He was Laura Palmer's boyfriend when she died. He's in high school and he lashes out a lot. He disrespects everyone. He starts fights with characters that we come to really like. So he's sitting in a diner booth across from his father, Major Garland Briggs, who ran into his son by chance and asked if he could tell him about a vision he had in his sleep the night before.
This was a vision, fresh and clear as a mountain stream.
A wonderfully poetic symphony of words follow to describe the Major in his family home as a knock on the door calls his attention. He says he opens the door and sees his son, calm and at peace. The Major describes this vision with great importance to him, and it lets the audience in to see the real and true love that these two have for one another, even if they rarely say so.
That was my vision of you.
You?
Bobby cries, and his father leaves the diner smiling. This scene single-handedly made me care about Bobby Briggs. Incredible. Thanks, David Lynch. However, for each of the stunning moments of character writing, there are equal moments of pain, suffering, and darkness. This show can be dark. I mean, the show begins boldly with a montage of grief as the town slowly learns of Laura's fate. This might be the foremost reason why I'm hesitant to call the show my favorite. I don't want to personally identify with some of the show's darker elements. It doesn't feel like Twin Peaks reflects me in the way that Steven Universe does. Or perhaps Twin Peaks is filling a void that Steven Universe simply can't. Maybe those darker elements are a part of me too. Twin Peaks reflects the world's darkness, whereas Steven Universe reflects its light. Not to say that one is better than the other. Art is seeking to reflect life, and darkness is just as true to life as light is. David Lynch often describes his work in terms of balance. Good exists with evil, light exists with dark. There's a balance. Lynch's work typically emphasizes the inherent contrast between the goodness in people and the worst that we're capable of. This can make for a really intense watch, and that isn't always what I want. Steven Universe, therefore, is a consistent source of comfort, whereas Twin Peaks maybe is an engaging challenge. Not because it's complicated or hard to understand. Twin Peaks may be weird, but it's not impossible to follow. Most of the show makes perfect sense, so that's enough about it being confusing or even that Twin Peaks requires explaining. What I mean to say is the show is emotionally and narratively challenging. Twin Peaks is always looking back. It is an investigation after all, the goal being to create an objective and detailed account of a past horror. We're all in constant conversation with our past, but it feels as though Twin Peaks is almost consumed by it. After the original run on TV ended in 1991, David Lynch returned to the world of Twin Peaks in the form of a feature film. Not to explore what happens next, despite it ending on a cliffhanger, but to examine the life and death of Laura Palmer from her perspective before the events of the show. Beyond that, the show was revived in 2017 for a third season, taking place 25 years after the events of the show. Twin Peaks: The Return is driven by its nature as a revival. What is Twin Peaks in 2017? Feels like Lynch is questioning the show's very identity and authenticity throughout. 25 years after being canceled, what is left? A show that died long ago, brought back to life only to always be looking back instead of forward? A new run, a new life, consumed by what came before, unable to move on. I first watched Twin Peaks with an old friend of mine. I had known this friend since elementary school, and through every significant transition in character I went through in my life that I can recall, this friend was a reliable constant. They may not have always been my closest friend, although sometimes they were. We had our moments, but they were always family to me. We don't talk anymore. I would reach out if I could, but they decided at some point that I didn't fit into their life anymore. That is my friend's choice to make, and I truly hope that they're finding their way in life. I miss them, as is my right, but no one is owed love. Love all you want, but you can't make others love you. If I was hurting them or even simply made them uncomfortable, I can't change that now. We move on with the awareness of conditional love, and hopefully we try to love again. We make new friends, find new family. However, I'm finding as I grow up that I've come to define myself more by the ones that I've lost than the ones around me. Trust me when I say that I understand how unhealthy that probably is. I can't really help it. I don't know if I've ever really come to hate anyone that I used to know. Even when I can admit that they hurt me or wronged me in some way, it always feels like my fault after enough time has passed. Grudges turn to regret and remembrance to yearning. As much as I love Twin Peaks, I watch it and I kind of feel stuck, trapped even, in what was and what could have been, had things been different. These shows don't have much in common. They seek to accomplish entirely different goals and commit to entirely different tones. But they do share a few common traits, and maybe those traits can clue us into why they both occupy a similar space in my mind. Or maybe not. Who cares? Both shows feature a small community filled with likable and well-realized characters. I know the layout of the towns. The roads all connect in my head. I know the townsfolk. I know their friends, their families, their jobs. It isn't just caring about the characters and what happens to them, but you're also invested in a community and in the way that every event affects the town's dynamic. When Laura Palmer is found dead at the start of Twin Peaks, you see how the whole town grieves together. And when aliens attack Steven's home, as they do several times in Steven Universe, you get to see how everyone in the town is impacted by the damage. Beach City from Steven Universe and the titular town of Twin Peaks are both real places in my mind. You aren't just watching these shows, you're living in them, exploring them, and becoming a part of these places and getting to know their people. Both shows are made up of very talented and passionate creators who put genuine effort into these stories, and I think that comes across. Rebecca Sugar may seem very different to David Lynch, but they're both trying to make something that feels true to them. And that goes for the cast and crew on both shows as well. I think the most significant similarity to me is the quality of both shows' soundtracks. Both shows feature soundtracks that are far too good than they ever had to be. Steven Universe is part musical, so the characters will sometimes sing and dance in place of speech to express their emotions. There's an episode in season 3, Mr. Greg, that features 7 songs in 11 minutes. The Steven Universe movie just went full musical. The music is probably what you're familiar with from this show, if nothing else. The same could maybe be said for Twin Peaks as well. Angelo Badalamenti's Twin Peaks soundtrack has probably influenced close to as much new music as Twin Peaks has influenced new TV. I first heard the music before I'd even seen the show, through the 2016 album Shoo Shoo Plays the Music of Twin Peaks. There's a clip from the documentary Secrets from Another Place, Creating Twin Peaks, where Badalamenti describes how he and Lynch came up with Laura Palmer's theme. He explains that David sat next to his piano and described a scene of a dark forest.
And you're in the dark woods, just get me into that beautiful darkness with the soft wind. And I started playing.
It seems like David knew what he was looking for in the music, but Angelo knew how to find it. You could write a whole book about how great the music from Twin Peaks is. In fact, Clare and Nina Norelli did write a whole book about the music from Twin Peaks. I recommend it. Steven Universe doesn't, to my knowledge, have any books written about its music yet, but it is certainly loved by many. The show has had multiple vinyl releases over the years, and I still haven't seen a single Blu-ray. Listen, I want to pay money in exchange for a Steven Universe Blu-ray box set. It's all I need to feel complete. Another strange similarity between both shows is their overall structure. Both stories are told through an original television run, followed by a movie, and then concluded with a sort of limited epilogue series. Turns out this structure in TV really works for me. I'm not sure that anyone has ever drawn that connection between those two shows before, so I'm not sure that it's valuable, but, I found it odd. What I think really appeals to me about both of these shows is their sincerity. There are certainly rough spots in both Steven Universe and Twin Peaks, but I think that only makes them more endearing to me. They both take many risks, and they aren't ashamed of those risks, whether they succeed or fail. Masterpiece is whatever you want it to be, and I feel like Steven Universe deserves a seat at the table just as much as the coveted Twin Peaks does. I'm thinking about all of this too hard. I like both shows plenty, and why do I always have to have a favorite? People are more complex than any single work of art can ever really sum up. That is why we create art, I suppose, to reflect some of ourselves in an effort to be seen by others. That could also just be me. Having a work of art speak to you is like seeing yourself in someone else's reflection. Understanding some aspect of yourself better after seeing it represented. Much of human experience is not so easily communicated in the languages that we use. If we don't ever speak it, can we even understand it? Art can point out things that have always been there, but we never notice. It makes the unspeakable heard, so that we may understand it. The truth of Twin Peaks is perhaps purposefully unclear. This is great. It leaves a lot up to interpretation. Twin Peaks is about a lot of things. It's about the nature of things, it's about balance, it's about corruption, but the truth is unique to every viewer. Is that not a perfect reflection of being alive? That ambiguity, however, leaves room for darkness to take over. You are given the option to see the beauty in Twin Peaks, but you run the risk of receiving from the show its horror. Steven Universe, on the other hand, does not leave its truth up to interpretation. It says it loudly, over and over again. Steven Universe is reflecting the light of the world and filtering out the darkness. The truth, or the answer, is love. According to Steven Universe, all problems can be solved through love. Love for the world, love for your friends, family, and most importantly, love for yourself. This is a difficulty for me, but Steven Universe makes me motivated. The show makes me want to love myself. It doesn't shy away from darker subjects such as abuse, grief, manipulation, but it treats that darkness as not defining people, only existing to be moved on from and as an opportunity for growth and change. Kids can be stupid. I was maybe 14 when I started my first long-term relationship. We started dating in middle school and broke up after sophomore year, I think. I was too young to be going through a lot of these new experiences and new emotions. I was absolutely too young to be committing myself to that one person. Halfway through high school, all of a sudden I had no idea who I was by myself. My identity was a mystery. Naturally, I made no effort to explore my new independence and jumped right back into another relationship, one after the next, to avoid having to ever be alone. I experimented with numerous unhealthy teenage coping mechanisms that I still struggle with today. It was around this period, following Baby's first bad breakup, that I first got into Steven Universe. The show's themes of love, growth, and change really spoke to me then, and for many of my worst days to come. Hope. A source of light in the darkness. Steven Universe is not Twin Peaks, but it is itself. I wouldn't have it any other way. Now that several years have gone by, I realize that not that much ever really changed. I'm alone again, and the idea of change is ringing ever louder in my head. Like a phone call, or maybe more of an alarm. I don't want to be trapped anymore.
We can see you through a window. We can show you what we know. When you leave here, you'll be let Show me what you want.